5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And welcome back to the podcast with no name. I am your host, Shanthosh. That is my friend Gaurav. And this is a podcast that we deep dive into topics that we like. That was a little foreshadowing of a possible name in the future. But yeah, pretty much what we do is we deep dive into topics that we think are interesting, cool, and maybe even educational sometimes. And we just do a little bit of research and just talk about it and get information from each other and learn from each other. That's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, pretty much. We're just talking about some stuff some people care about, no one
So
cares about. You know?
yeah, so some weeks he's gonna know more about it, and I'm gonna be the learner, and some weeks I'm gonna know more, and he's gonna be the learner. And so this week happens to be one of those weeks again where I sit here and I learn about. This time it's what, space?
It's about space, bro. You know, I always loved space. Ever since I was a child, space is my thing. Space is my go-to space, you know? See what I did there? But yo, anyways, so big news came up in the space industry in this last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that has to do with our homeboy Elon Musk again.
Elon.
And he's basically he came out at a press conference and he said how he's releasing Starship.
Okay.
Right?
Oh, I
So-
think I've seen that.
Yeah.
I follow him on Twitter.
It's
I
all over
mean,
the
side
place.
note, but like Elon's like probably one of the best on Twitter too, on social media too. Like but besides the fact that he's like a genius and he's doing all this shit, he's a fucking cool guy too. So.
He's a funny guy. He's a
Yeah.
funny entrepreneur,
Yeah.
you know? But, bro, what he's doing with Starship is so cool. So, essentially, what it is he's trying to replace the shuttle,
Okay.
the space shuttle. So, the
Yeah.
space shuttle's been going on for 30 years,
Yeah.
27 years, no changes,
Yeah.
right? So, it's old technology and it's, like, outdated and stuff. So, he's
Yeah.
trying to make the space shuttle be, the Starship be the new space shuttle,
Yeah.
right? And so what's really cool about that is that he's coming in with a whole new approach and he's using different engines and he's using different components
Yeah.
and he's using everything's different, so everything's from scratch,
Mm.
and that's so cool about it. So essentially,
Before you continue, explain to everyone because there's some
yeah, I'm
people
so
that don't know
passionate
anything.
about this kind of shit. So I
Yeah,
just
he
continue.
loves space. All right, so shuttle. Like, explain to the people that don't know anything about space what you're talking about. Like, what the shuttle is.
Okay, so the space shuttle is pretty much the most iconic vehicle to go to space. Like, we see it everywhere. We see it in movies and everything. So it's that white plane-looking thing sitting on that orange fuel
Yeah,
tank.
yeah.
Right? That's a space shuttle.
Yeah.
So the purpose of that space shuttle was initially to take astronauts from here into space
Yeah.
and then back and be reusable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Reusable with quotes because it's not reusable.
Yeah.
So essentially, for the past 30 years, NASA, which is an extremely budgeted organization with a lot of government
Oversight.
tie-ins and oversights, and
Yeah.
like they have to follow government policies, have used the space shuttle and haven't made it any better. It's
Yeah.
the same old garbage that it used to be.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's garbage is because they said that it's supposed to be reusable, but every time the space shuttle comes back to Earth, it's supposed to go back up again in a little bit of refurbishment, right? But it doesn't do that. Whereas it takes months and months, they have to literally strip the whole entire thing down, engines, everything, all the components down, and then rebuild it and then
Yeah.
put it back into space.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's not efficient
Yeah.
for the people.
And obviously there's a lot of conspiracy theories or maybe even real theories on why they haven't updated it. You want to talk about that?
I don't know. Do you know any?
I've heard a few.
What are they?
Okay, so pretty much I've heard that the governors in the states that build these shuttles and stuff,
Okay.
they forbid them from updating it or forbid them, or like they don't even give them like the budget to update it because the workers in those states would lose jobs.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
that's exactly that's not a conspiracy. That's right.
That's actually
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true because look, when a space shuttle goes into space,
Yeah.
first that orange fuel tank with the
Yeah.
white boosters attached to it,
Yeah.
it detaches and it falls into the ocean, right?
Yeah.
And those need, I think, around somewhere between $100 to $200 million to refurbish each.
Yeah.
Like they're basically brand new built over and over again,
Yeah.
right? They just use some parts of it.
Yeah.
So that creates jobs, thousands and thousands of jobs,
Yeah.
engineering jobs, IT jobs, cleaning jobs, all sorts of jobs in manufacturing that
Yeah.
thing creates, right? And so, and same thing for the shuttle. When the shuttle lands, it needs to be repaired. The engines need to be fixed. It needs to do
Yeah.
all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that creates jobs. So when you introduce a reusable thing, right, like a fully reusable shuttle that
Yeah.
can come down in like a day or two, get ready and go back up, you lose all those thousands of jobs,
Yeah.
depending.
Yeah. But here's a question that everyone has to ask now. Like, okay, so, and this is why organization like NASA it has been effective in the past, but it's not as effective as and it's not it doesn't have as much excitement compared to like
SpaceX and stuff.
SpaceX
Yeah.
and Blue. Was it Blue?
Blue Origin.
Blue Origin. Sorry, yeah. So, but like, yeah, that's a question that we gotta ask. Like, is at one point do we let these lawmakers and governors interfere with fucking progress in science?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And humanity, and just because a few people will lose like their jobs, you know.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, there's a lot of ethical debates I feel like you can do with space and shit.
Bro, this is the time. That's why it's so exciting. That
Yeah.
this is that time where governments are looking to private corporations because they're leading the way of space.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so exciting what Elon Musk is doing with Starship.
Yeah.
Because the practical side would be to replace the space shuttle, which if he replaces the space shuttle, that means people they can transport cargo to space back really fast and really frequently,
Yeah.
so they can build more bases in space, build
Yeah.
more satellites in space, and build everything more in space.
Yeah.
And private corporations now have contracts and stuff that are affordable to them to put their assets into space.
Yeah.
So now we're becoming like a global web of space. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
everyone has access to space because of Elon Musk's vision of Starship.
Yeah.
And the freaky part about Starship is like how you see you see so much gas tanks and stuff like that on top of regular space shuttles, like the orange one and the two boosters.
Yeah.
Now Starship is like reducing all of that because it's using a whole different type of new fuel. And this is where it's cool.
Is it that silver thing that's like a kind of like it looks like those classic rocket kind of thing? Is it that?
Oh no, that classic rocket is the space of the shape. Sorry, the shape of the ship itself.
Yeah.
But that doesn't have to do much with it. The innovation really comes, and this is mind-boggling because it's so interesting. The innovation really comes when Elon Musk chooses to use methane, liquid methane,
Yeah.
instead of liquid oxygen in RP1. RP1 is a fuel
Yeah.
that regular rockets use, right? It's just a mixture of liquids and stuff.
Yeah.
So RP1 and oxygen combine and create a huge fire nuclear explosion that goes out the back.
Yeah.
So Elon Musk is using methane. And he's using methane because
You can get it up there, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
You can produce methane on the moon,
Yeah.
or you can produce methane on Mars
Yeah.
with water and just simple like air, and you can do some complex chemistry and create methane,
Yeah.
liquid methane, right? So that's crazy because now once there's a lunar base, which is his first goal, lunar base,
Yeah.
where you can get Earth's assets up there,
Yeah.
and it takes a lot of energy to get up there, right? So
Yeah.
by the time it's in the outer the outer orbits of Earth, the rockets are depleted. They're
Yeah.
done. You know what I mean? They have nothing in them.
Yeah.
So the point would be to land on Mars. The moon, refuel, and then head out to the outer solar system. So that's gangster.
Yeah.
And the fact that it eliminates like literally 50% of the problems.
Yeah.
Because now, instead of worrying about how to carry all that fuel to Mars, you can just carry as much as you need, refuel, and come back. And on top of that, because Starship is going to be like a rocket that's easily, readily available to reuse, it can literally land there, refuel, and off it. Because it's like 7, 8, 9 month journey to go to
Yeah.
Mars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really cool that he's using that, and liquid methane has been like it's been ignored in the space industry. Like no one's used it. This is probably gonna be the first. The Raptor engines use liquid methane,
Yeah.
and Raptor engines haven't seen flight yet, right? They've only been tested for flight, but
Yeah.
no actual boosters have
Yeah.
ever used the Raptor engines. So it's gonna be really cool to see that launch with liquid methane and liquid oxygen.
Yeah.
So for the first time in history, and if that is possible, then bro, that opens doors for like forever.
Okay,
That's
so
crazy.
the furthest we've gone in space is like manned is
Moon.
the moon. Okay, so let's say this comes to fruition in like the next maybe year or so, like next 2-3 years.
Yeah.
How and like let's say 10 years after that, how far you think we go? Like what do you think our progress in going to like the outer edges of space would be?
I don't, bro. I'm no expert. I don't even know what's like. Well, you know what? How fast these companies are gonna go. But
Yeah.
in our lifetime, it's possible we'd see like the first humans colony on Mars. You know?
On Mars?
Yeah, because this is why this is key. Because budgeting is a huge factor for all this stuff. If you give NASA $100 billion, and if you give these companies so much money, they can produce shit like tomorrow. They can do it. You know what I mean? So that's why key. So what Starship essentially is gonna do is it's gonna open doors
Yeah.
to get shit in space. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then Elon Musk's second huge thing that it came out a couple months ago, and it's kind of like already in deployment, is Starlink. And what Starlink is basically 11,000 satellites circling the globe
Yeah.
and creating kind of like a network where internet is readily available to everyone. Right? And so it's really cool. I don't want this microphone. Anyways, it's really cool. So you have your planet, and then around it is like like a storm of satellites,
Yeah.
like a bees around a beehive, right?
Yeah.
And they're each communicating to each other with lasers.
Yeah.
Right, so they're talking to each other by pointing at lasers, and like they inter switch laser directions to each other to communicate and send the message through, right? So essentially, how that happens is you have a regular antenna that you buy from SpaceX for like, I think it's gonna be like under 200 or something,
Yeah.
and you put it on top of your roof, and that connects it to the satellites, and
Yeah.
it talks that way. Because internet now,
Yeah.
it works in a way where, if I want to access Australia.com, which is the servers are located in Australia, the message I send the packet, it has to travel through the routers, through all of Canada, basically through cables all of Canada, and then underwater it travels through cables through the Atlantic Ocean, and then through the rest of the oceans and lands, and all the way after that it ends up in Australia.
Yeah.
And this happens in like, I think 74 milliseconds, right? Like that's the speed. And so when you introduced communication via light speed, which is in space, where there's no interference because it's traveling at light speed through lasers between satellites, that increases the latency, like decreases the latency. So you have no latency, basically, right? You have very, very minimal latency. And because of that, it's really important to see in stock markets and stuff like that, where it's time sensitive, where like in fractions of a second, millions of dollars can go down. People like that need high speeds of internet at low latencies. Right? And then regular people who in like Siberia, somewhere north, they don't have access to internet because the groundwork infrastructure has been laid for it.
Yeah.
But now there's satellites in space that can do all that stuff for them, and that's clean. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not doing anything up there. It's just orbiting the planet. It's doing its thing.
And even us, like some like me. Okay, so my friend lives like a kilometer from here, right? And so we got the same internet package, and this is just a story. We got the same internet package, like it's the same deal. Like the same guy was hooking us up.
Yeah.
Boom. He was available for Bell 500, and I was only able to get Bell 150 because I didn't like the infrastructure wasn't available in like a kilometer difference. That's all our house different is.
Yeah.
And so that was the difference between like that. So that's actually pretty cool. The fact that now it's from the air, lasers, like all that shit, and like
Yeah,
light speed,
exactly.
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's radio waves to us, but lasers in between the satellites, right? But 11,000. So they got SEC approvals for 11,000 satellites.
That's crazy.
Right? That they're gonna put up there, and with that, it's gonna cost about 10 billion to make, and revenue per year is gonna be 30 billion. Now, knowing Elon, he's not gonna put it in his pocket.
Yeah.
That's all going to SpaceX.
Yeah, SpaceX. Yeah.
To promote more growth, because NASA's budget is 20 billion a year. That's how much the government gives them.
Yeah.
And SpaceX is trying to go for like 30 billion and put that into this. So you see like a chain reaction of shit happening all over space if that much money is getting funded into one company.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you more boosters get produced, more spaceships get produced, and more colonies on the moon get produced, and all that stuff, and it expands. So that's why Elon Musk's vision is so cool. You know what I mean? Like he's actually the first person that's ever gonna create this, like the first person ever.
Yeah. Okay, so for people that are probably wondering right now, is say SpaceX, are they like working with NASA? Are they a competitor to NASA? What are they? Like what are they exactly?
They're partners, bro.
Yeah.
They're not competitors. NASA's a government agency that basically has to struggle to put space shuttles in the air, right? And take money away from their actual research and development when they can put it towards research and development and make these technologies come to life. But rather they have to kind of cater to these telecom companies or military or something like that has to put satellites in space. So when SpaceX comes in the picture and they have a cheaper alternative, people go to SpaceX, and NASA's like, yes, how we could focus on actually building shit that matters.
Yeah.
So I think they're partners, and another thing is NASA controls all policies of space.
Okay.
Right, like all like approvals of space, NASA controls. So they're kind of like a governing agency for all these smaller agencies, right? So it's no two ways. SpaceX is gonna dominate NASA. Like, there's no two ways. Like, they're
Yeah.
gonna come up to a point where they're just gonna crush NASA,
Yeah.
and that's a good thing for us because private companies' innovation is way more further,
Yeah.
and that also means that there's gonna be more technology introduced to the public like us,
Yeah.
because there's more exploration going on in space, right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, WD-40, like what every probably household has was a byproduct of a rocket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, how do you keep water off the rocket? The rocket. There's some components on the rocket that you need to keep water
Yeah,
off.
yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
how do you keep it off? Put WD-40 on it. And it went like that. But another thing is, like, yeah, he's just rebuilding the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, you see on the space shuttle, you're using the reason why the bottom of the space shuttle is black
Yeah.
is because it's using tiles,
Yeah.
like carbon component tiles, which can withstand temperatures that are very, very hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because when when a space shuttle is re-entering Earth's atmosphere, it's hitting a brick of air.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what it uses to slow down from 27,000 kilometers an hour.
Yeah.
That's what it uses to slow down its brakes. So because of that, there's a lot of heat generated. Now Elon Musk's team is like genius as hell because now they're using a type of steel. You know what I mean? I think it's called like R1 steel or something. But they're using a type of steel instead of using carbon because the carbon costs 125,000 per ton. Steel costs 2,500 per ton, and it does a better job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and this stuff NASA already figured out all this shit, but they can't do it. They don't have approvals because literally to put like an extra button in the space shuttle as it is, you need approvals for days.
Yeah.
It have to go through levels of command, like so much shit. Whereas in SpaceX, if an engineer thinks this is not right, this is right, literally talking to one person, it's done. You know what I mean? If it makes sense, it's done. So that's why these companies are growing so fast, man.
Yeah.
Governments just corrupt stuff.
Okay, so you said something a little in that whole thing. You said what that one day, SpaceX could crush NASA. Do you actually think that's possible? Like they would like that NASA would be no more, or like are you talking about in terms of like they will just be the go-to, like the government will just literally just delegate everything to them versus going through NASA? You get what I'm saying?
I think NASA will always be the governing body of space,
Okay.
but SpaceX will definitely terminate them in terms of dominance in space, like growth and how much they know. Because like for example, self-landing is already given to SpaceX because they're the experts in it. So NASA's like, yo, for our Mars rovers that get there, the self-landing part of it, right, and the propulsion that's needed to land on top of Martian surface for these small rovers, they gave to SpaceX already because they're like they do it better than we do because they have experience with all this shit.
Yeah.
So like stuff like that is already given out to SpaceX, but NASA's always going to be the governing body of it because it's government.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay.
That's
cool.
Yeah, that's cool, and it's gonna be a space race all over again, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like SpaceX also built new engines, right? The Raptor and the Merlin engines are from scratch. They're new as well, and for the first time, SpaceX is using a different type of engine than the regular rocket engines, and so I was doing a little research into how they work. It's so cool, but I don't know enough about it to explain it on camera, but it's so cool.
Okay, so you said that it's gonna be a space race now. Okay,
Yeah.
so clarifying that because the first time there was a space race, it was like what the cosmonauts, Russia
And
U.S. So now that we have, what's it called? Like, now that we have SpaceX, who's their competitor? Like, who's competing with them?
Smaller government agencies. There's like Blue Origin. It's gonna be a direct competitor with SpaceX. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
SpaceX is just more powerful right now because of the hype it has. But there's gonna be competition. Like we don't know what Russians are doing behind the scenes. They can be allocating budgets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's gonna be another race to get to Mars, and it by the looks of it right now and the advances in technology, it looks like it's probably gonna be SpaceX.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that would have been impossible to imagine 20 years ago, bro.
Yeah.
If you said like 20 years ago, like in the early 2000s, there's gonna be a company that's gonna dominate space.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, how the hell can somebody do that?
A company, yeah.
You know what I mean? How do you do that? How does a person do that?
Yeah.
And now it's proven that they do that. Now next question is like, how do you mine the moon? Like,
Yeah.
how do you like? government has to step in to mine the moon. Like the companies can't do that. Like you can't be an entrepreneur sitting at home being like, I'm gonna mine the moon one day. But now it's gonna be possible because these guys are gonna go and extract resources from the moon.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean.
Governments that can't say shit.
And governments can't say shit because they have that power now. They have the money. They have the funding. It's all about money at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And then another 10 years from now, there's gonna be another question: who's gonna go to Mars first, right? And then NASA does not have the resources to get there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially with Starlink, after the revenue Starlink generates, it's gonna be crazy. And Starlink's so cool. It's gonna provide internet to the whole world.
Yeah. And so what is it, like an internet subscription? Like everyone pays monthly?
Yeah,
kind of thing?
it's gonna be from us all the way to like military applications. But military has their own satellites.
Yeah.
But like it's gonna be from the lowest of the lowest users somewhere in the village of like Africa somewhere, to all the way up the ladder to major corporations who need that kind of internet. Right, so it's 11,000 satellites. You can literally look up in the sky and see a chain of them going by.
Oh, you could see it.
Yeah, if the sky's dark enough and they're going by, because it's a grid system, right? So they're all going to be gridded out properly, and they're all going to be orbiting in like patterns where they're all just constantly moving around, and you can literally see like trains of satellites.
That's scary.
It is, but like that's the future. You know what I mean? Like you see in sci-fi movies, there's like shit flying around all over the sky. Earth is gonna be similar, but especially by the time we're gonna be dying, like in like I don't know, like 2060s or something. It's gonna be like that. Yeah. There's gonna be shit floating around space, and you're gonna be like, what's happening on Mars? Like there's a colony on Mars. Yeah. People are going there, and by that time, hopefully, there's gonna be like tickets for us to go to the moon and stuff. And I'm definitely like, hopefully, rich enough to go there.
Hell
but you know what I mean? So that's the direction it's headed in, and so. Kind of begs the question, like, the problems on Earth, are they that big to allocate so much money to? Yeah. And money's the foundation of everything, you know? Yeah. And so if you allocate it to space, so much more can happen. So much more, bro. Yeah. And that's just moon and Mars. We're talking about mining asteroids for like platinum and like all these precious metals that are running out on Earth. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's going to be that kind of civilization we're heading towards. That's a major shit because people just live in their own, like Instagram, Twitter, or whatever. They just live in there. But they like, if you look behind the scenes of what's actually happening to Earth as a species, it's so crazy, bro.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the crazy thing is like now, climate change is such a huge topic.
Yeah.
And then right as that's becoming so huge, like everyone's like, yo, stop using plastic. Like, you can't use straws because this, that. Just as soon as that, like everyone starts being like conscious about that, we have like it's almost like an exit strategy.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So do you genuinely think that people can go out and live on the moon, like not the moon, but on Mars?
See, like I live as in like just like go do science or live.
Like live as a colony.
See, that's complicated because that increases so much of the technology we need right now. Yeah. We're just not up to date. You know what I mean? Like 20 years from now, these private corporations of space are going to do so much more in advanced technologies. Like, just look at our cell phones. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, bro, like 5 years ago, this was nothing. Now it's like something really big. So just like that, space is going to have that exponential growth factor. And I think we'll be able to colonize a place fully when we're at kind of like the peak of that exponential growth factor where we're stuck and we're like, we need another push because our phones are stuck now. Yeah. Like there's nothing that like, bro, we're talking about like small holes in a screen that's making a difference between like $1,000, $2,000. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's getting stuck. So space is in its baby ages. Yeah. So like whoever dominates these ages of babiness, they're going to dominate the entire future. And so it's going to take a long time, more than I think past our life.
You think so? Even past our life?
I think colonize? So. To colonize and live there, thrive there with like greenhouses producing plants and terraforming the whole planet, bro, it's going to take a while.
That's crazy.
Terraforming is cool too. Like that takes thousands of years, but it's possible.
Isn't that like I've heard of instances where like people just nuke the fuck out of place, like they'll nuke the entire planet and then until it produces like oxygen or some shit. It'll produce some shit and then plants and some I don't know, I'm not sure, but
so yeah, it's basically heating up the core of the temperature, the atmosphere, the core and everything together to make it sustainable for plants. Yeah. And then dominating the whole planet with plants, so it creates oxygen and then we're moving
and that can't be sped up. That can't be sped up at all.
No, this is thousands of years because then you have to it's a huge project because you have to put power plants, massive power. Like it doesn't. It's not like you drop a bomb and it's all fixed. It's like you have to put massive factories there that produce methane and these greenhouse gases and put them in the atmosphere. And then you have to nuke the North Pole and the South Pole at the same time, so the ice breaks
Yeah.
and the water's available there to then convert into methane to release into the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then when it gets hot enough, finally,
Yeah.
go plant a tree outside and see if it grows, like that type of shit.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
thousands of years in the
Oh,
making.
that's crazy.
Terraforming is crazy, but with our technology now, terraforming is possible.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Terraforming is absolutely possible. We've done it to our own planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's so possible. The only factor is getting there and getting back and getting all our resources there.
Yeah.
And that's the problem these guys are trying to solve now.
Yeah, and that's the key. Elon Musk is trying to. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's and that's cool, because if that's solved, then there's no limit to getting to Mars.
Yeah.
And there's no limit to start terraforming or doing science, advanced science. Like we think this is science. Like wait till you get there, though. That's science.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Exactly.
And like speaking on terraforming, climate change and stuff, I don't think it exists. This is gonna be like capping, but climate change doesn't exist.
Okay, so before we continue, all right. Okay, climate change. Okay, to me, climate change definitely does exist. All right. I just feel like I don't think that global warming. Like I don't think us humans are like I don't think we're not killing the earth. Like the earth will live long before it live long before us and long after us. Like there's always these events that happen like ice age, like
Yeah.
all that stuff. And I think if that's what you mean, then I agree with you.
Well, that's exactly what I mean.
Okay, yeah.
Because look, climate. First of all, people like are climate change. There's a whole bunch of people protesting climate change. Dude, like you need to understand, climate change doesn't exist for Earth. It exists for you.
Yeah.
You right?
Yeah.
It's getting hot. Your children will not have food. That's a problem for humans,
Yeah.
not the world.
Not the world.
Animals get dying and stuff. Yes, that's a problem, but it has happened on a scale so catastrophic that your mind can't even wrap around it before, and it's happened 6 to 7 times before,
Dinosaurs.
right? And it happens every 600,000 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you think you're killing off animals, the Earth kills them off anyways. 600,000 years. Every 600,000 years is an ice age,
Yeah.
which kills off majority of the species,
Yeah.
and so that always happens.
Yeah.
Earth will be like, so there's a scale on how hot the whole Earth is as a whole,
Yeah.
and like a 0.5 degree temperature change in that is catastrophic. Like it'll shift a lot of stuff in the oceans
Yeah.
and the air winds and stuff like that. So it has gone to a point where it's shifted like 7-8 degrees plus or minus. You know, it's gone to those points,
Yeah.
and it's even gone to a point where the whole entire planet was covered in snowball. Like it was a snowball planet. That's called Snowball Earth.
Yeah.
Planet Earth documentary, right?
Yeah.
So that will always come and that will always go. The question is, will you survive it?
Yeah. And that's no.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you say the temperature of Earth's atmosphere is getting hotter, you're right. It's getting hotter.
Yeah.
We're creating CO2
Yeah.
and we're terraforming the place so it gets hotter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Common sense.
Yeah.
But saying that the world won't survive is not right.
Yeah.
You won't survive.
You won't.
Politicians won't survive.
Yeah. People, animals, you won't survive.
Yeah, and even to be honest, at the end of the day, like humans are really, like humans have been crazy privileged, right, to be living and growing in abundance populations. But maybe climate change is a way to know that it's time to control our population because the Earth only has a limited amount of resources. And the proof of that is the forest fire that just happened in Brazil. Where was it, Brazil? Amazon rainforest, wherever it is.
Brazil and in Indonesia. After.
Yeah. So that's the proof. Because why do they start fires? Because they need space. What's the best way to burn down trees when they're occupying space? I mean, what's to take down trees is to burn them, right? And then if you can't control it, it's a forest fire. Yeah. So you see that stuff's already happening. We're fighting over space. We're fighting over resources. Yeah. There's wars going on over oil. Oil's gonna run out. What's gonna happen? God knows. You know what I mean? So it's the signs are there. The question isn't should you fight climate change. No, the question is should you fight population growth.
Yeah, that's
the biggest question.
That's the biggest contributor. Because,
exactly.
I don't know. I think it's since like 1950s our population has doubled, like in like 60 years.
Yeah, and that's exponential, right?
Yeah,
because
exactly. So it's like, yeah, the Earth is always gonna live. Like, yeah, and I think that's why I think like these environmentalists, a lot of environmentalists, they say, oh, like the rhinos are gonna die out, and the elephants are gonna die out, and and seals and dolphins, like they're looking at it at a very like
Micro scale.
very micro scale, and it's almost selfish at the fact like, oh, we're gonna lose these animals, so like that I find cute or I find cuddly or I find like great or
Exactly.
it's all like people without realizing they've turned climate change or whatever like the issue or like the world ending, this huge issue of like overpopulation, all that, they turn into themselves.
Propaganda. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like-
into like a strategy.
Yeah, we're feeding each other like our these stories like, oh yeah, like, we have to save this, we have to save that, but at the end of the day, it's we have to save ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you, bro. It's not. It's not. It's like politicians, and I'm talking about all these politicians that support climate change, have made it such a micro thing. For example, climate change. If a person were to define what climate change is, they'd probably say species dying off, the Earth's temperature rising, water levels going up. Cool, right? That's all they say. They don't really say the broader effects of climate change. You know what I mean? Which would be Earth is heating up. Yes, it's heating up, but Earth has already heated up before. Now, what does that do to you? 50 years from now, there's going to be a famine if it continues. 50 years from now, there's going to be this if it continues. You know what I mean? 50 years from now, like the world's fish population will go down because of the food chain reaction that goes down if these majority of the predators get wiped out.
Yeah.
Right? Not because a rhino dies. I'm sad that the rhino dies, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It's a bigger scale of
It's
things.
bigger,
And so
yeah.
politicians, all these people, yes, we see that they're showing scientists are showing charts that Earth's it's rising, but what's happening after it rises is the question. Not just it's rising. So it's a factor of education as well,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and no, also like so we're Canadian, we're in Canada, so right now the elections are going on, right? Like the debates and all that stuff, and some of the biggest major points for people right now for voting is climate change and global warming and what they're gonna do. Everyone has a plan for climate change, and you know what's funny? The one guy, the leader of the People's Party, the Bloc Québécois, pretty much like the Quebec one, he's the one guy who's like climate change doesn't exist, like it's always happened.
Yeah.
And everyone laughed at him. They're like, yo,
It's
like,
true. Yeah.
he was like literally everyone else is like, yeah, we're gonna cut carbon emissions and 50%. We're gonna tax all these people that emit the most carbon. This that. Like, yo, like, yeah, animals are dying. This that. They're appealing to our sentiment that we're gonna be more sad that a dolphin dies or a thing dies versus when we die one day. So
Exactly.
that's what they're appealing to, and they're using that to feed their policies, feed us this that. Like, it's pretty crazy. Like, if you actually are informed and you kind of like do a little bit of research, like you can see right through a lot of these lies and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, politicians are a bunch of liars, bro. Yeah, I think all four of the there's four candidates or three candidates, whatever they are.
There's
they're
a
all-
bunch of them. It's like more, to be honest.
Yeah, but like they're all like it's a bunch of appealing to people's sentiments. Like a rhino dying is so sad, bro. By the way, I think animals are like amazing. I'm not against animals or anything. Like I get it, like we should definitely save the tigers as they're one of the most iconic species on the planet, right?
Yeah.
But we should also think about that ant that's gonna die, the
Yeah.
ant species, because the ant species is gonna create way more of a wave
Yeah.
through a whole ecosystem than that tiger dying.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like you just know what climate change actually means. Because let me tell you a story. So in the ice age, when that was happening, the ice age was dying down around about like when human species was just evolving and becoming like good. You know what I mean? Like becoming self-sustaining. We had tools, we had arrows going, we had fires, everything. So what happened was the ice age literally covered half of the planet from south up and north down. So it covered basically all of Canada.
Yeah.
And what happened was all the ice that was sitting in the oceans was sitting on land, right? So ocean levels are low. Okay? And so when the ice melted, all the cities that were at the borders of these like America and this, like back in the days 5,000 years ago, they all drowned and they were underwater, right? They're thousands of feet underwater now. You can't even tell where they are. So the most ancient civilizations from humanity are all underwater. You can't do any research.
Yeah.
So the point being is that 10,000 years from now, or whatever, when the polar ice caps melt, the same thing's gonna happen again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So people need to be aware that look, climate change isn't about just people dying and like animals dying and stuff like that. It's about history being rewritten as it did unnaturally.
Yeah.
Right? So you're speeding up the process, which is unnatural.
Yeah.
Right? And another thing of climate change that we're expediting is because the ice age just passed, the earth is naturally heating up.
No.
You know what I mean? It doesn't need anything. It's just naturally heating up, and we're just expediting that process with greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
Right? So, and there's nothing these politicians can do.
Yeah.
Nothing they can do,
Yeah.
right? A, they're all being funded by corporations,
Yeah.
and B, corporations are the one producing these
Yeah,
things.
I think I seen where it's like 11 companies produce like 75 or 80% of the world's
Exactly.
pollution and stuff.
So there's literally nothing any of you can do to change climate change except you can stop littering, and that'll save a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like littering small stuff, that's cool, but like when you look at the big scale, nothing you can do and except invest in Elon Musk's space company.
Yeah, and then and move out to fucking thing Mars. Or but what's it called? So yeah. So you can't change climate change. Like you can't change that.
You can't. What I'm saying is, look, I'm no
can
scientist.
slow it down.
I'm no scientist. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
what we're saying is our thoughts on it,
Yeah.
our opinions on it. But what I'm saying is, you can try as much as you want. These politicians try. It's not gonna slow down. It's a snowball effect. It doesn't slow down until the currents in the oceans change and the cold winds from the Arctic are going over these places and they change the Earth's temperature as a whole. For
Yeah.
example, a volcano can actually reduce the Earth's temperature quite significantly
Because of the smoke and shit.
because of the ashes.
Yeah.
Right? So as ironic that is, like the heat is actually reducing, like it's reflecting the sun.
Yeah.
The ashes are reflecting the sun, so it
Yeah.
reduces the core temperature of
Yeah.
of Earth's atmosphere. So there's if a volcano can do that, it's gonna take you 100 years.
Yeah. All right.
You
So
know
I
what
have
I mean?
so I have a question. Okay. So I don't know if I don't know if this is a thing for everyone, right? I don't know if this like everyone can feel the same way, but okay. So I've noticed that the weather's been a little more sporadic. You get what I'm saying? Like it's colder longer or colder shorter, or like summer's longer, summer's shorter. Like it'll be cold in the middle of the summer, like randomly. Now, are those all effects of climate change, or climate change like what we were talking about, or is there like actual like is there a different reason for that? What do you think?
Look, this is my personal opinion on it, okay? And this is kind of backed up by some research too.
Yeah.
Every year will not be the same, nor will every decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We'll see the hottest summers. Like we would have seen the hottest summers like 30, 40 years ago when there was like barely any climate change according to humans, right? Like it doesn't matter. Those cycles don't matter because you're not taking into account Earth's rotation, Earth's angle when it's orbiting the sun,
Yeah.
right? The seasons, there's so many. There's solar storms that play the magnetic field.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Those are major players of Earth's seasonal like waves that go
Yeah.
that shorter summer, longer summer. Those are the major players.
Yeah.
You're thinking about climate change,
Yeah.
right? That's not that major of a player when it comes to seasons.
Yeah.
Looking at it like, oh, this season was longer than this season. That's not true. Temperature, however, that's a different situation, right? Like temperature, the heat of the temperature and stuff. All that's right. As Earth's temperature goes up, the seasons will be hotter, and the colder places will be warmer,
Yeah.
right? And so like it's kind of good for Canada because like
Yeah.
more farm. That's one of the politicians debated that.
I think it was the People's Party guy.
It's like
The
if
French guy.
global warming is good because Canadian farmers can farm longer or something like that because it's so micro. That's what I'm saying. People need to start thinking 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, 90 years, not just like the next 1 year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't. It's just like that thing like where you can't see like it's like time. You can't see it because it's so slow, but you can feel it over a long time that was time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that.
That's pretty interesting. So yeah, guys, don't get manipulated by people into like, oh yeah, vote for this person because of climate change, or their policy on climate change is really like good. We should probably vote for them. You know, there are other important factors as well. You know, look into everything.
Exactly. Let's address the protest for a second. Like why they're protesting.
In China.
No, the climate change protests going on in Canada.
Oh, and yeah, that too.
So this is what my thoughts are on it. I think protesting it's a good thing that they're doing that because one, the youth's involved and they're kind of giving voice to climate change. And then on the other side, I'm pretty sure those people have created more garbage in this world, right? Than compared to half of Asia.
Yeah.
Per person garbage amount created. I'm pretty sure those person have allocated more because we've created, I think, 10 times more than a regular person in Asia. And if you go to Asia, you can see it. Like, those people use nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Barely anything. And we're using so much. So, So it's kind of like you're protesting, yes, for government policies to change, but it's not gonna change in just one country. And one person can argue that one will lead to many others. True, go after the corporations, not the government.
Yeah, and you can't really touch corporations.
So yeah, exactly. So I mean, look, it's just a circle.
Yeah,
Do
but-
your part in the cycle.
exactly. Do your part. All you can do is educate someone. Do your part, and honestly hope that it doesn't happen in our lifetime.
Bro, like all these people protesting, go create a documentary. I swear to God, that works.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio created a documentary.
Yeah. He's sick. He's sick guy.
And he's huge, but we have YouTube. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like he created a documentary that was so impactful, bro. That
Yeah.
like he got like medals and stuff for like it was just mind-bogglingly crazy documentary.
Yeah. The other
Right.
cool guy.
And in that it says like he was talking to some minister in India about all this climate change and stuff. He's like the minister in India or something like that's like, there's nothing these people will do. Like the people in India, there's nothing they will do to change that. Like they won't stop throwing shit on the garbage. They won't do this. They won't stop themselves. When the leaders of the nation, such as Leonardo DiCaprio, these major actors, Beyonce, Jay-Z, all these people, are creating so much more garbage, and their ecological footprint is so much more bigger
Yeah.
that the sheep follow the the leader.
Yeah,
You know what I
no.
mean? So until the leaders don't change, nothing's gonna happen.
Yeah. So if they keep flying around like private jets for like one jet for like 10 people,
Exactly.
they're gonna be like, yo, what the fuck? These guys are doing all that.
Yeah.
And then on top of them is corporations, those guys, like those billionaires, even more. Like, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's a chain. If the leaders don't stop or don't start changing shit, then
Yeah.
bro, it's some guy with like that's been using like fucking the plastic spoons, not the plastic spoon, like metal spoons and metal straw. They're not gonna make a difference. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, you know?
Exactly. Yo, that's what I'm saying. So instead of protest, yes, but there's different ways of protest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think people should acknowledge the camera and YouTube opportunities more to protest and to advocate these messages rather than standing in front of a building, which is what they did like 400 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my message with protest. I
Yeah,
mean, and of course, reducing your private ecological footprint, which is
Yeah.
already bigger than 98% of the world, is a difference.
And you can also do shit like boycott these companies. That like if you boycott a company and there's actually a significant dent in their profits, they might be forced to switch to a more ecological footprint. Or, you know, like I've already started seeing restaurants instead of plastic bags they give paper bags, like
Yeah, stuff like that helps.
because people will be like, oh, you guys use plastic bags, plastic straws. Like, what the hell? What are you guys doing? The earth is dying, so they'll change. As long as you keep like if you put pressure on the big guys, they will change. Because at the end of the day, they're making the money off you.
Yeah, there's certainly growth noticed in all these awareness messages. I'm not saying there isn't. There's definitely is,
Yeah.
but there needs to be more pressure on different ways of promoting these things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if people, bro, if there was, I don't even know if there's a YouTube channel dedicated for this kind of stuff, for just climate change awareness month.
Probably not. Probably not.
You know what I mean? Like,
There could be though.
so like there's like all these, yeah. So there's a lot of ways, bro. And then all we can do here is sit and talk. But I mean, shout out to those people who are actually in the protest. Like they actually care about this.
like that are actually doing crazy.
Yeah,
stuff
that's good.
about
Shout
it.
out to those guys.
Yeah. Anyways, I think that's probably it for our podcast. No, is it? Do we have anything else to talk about?
I think that's good for now. I mean, we're gonna have a lot more space podcasts coming up, anyways.
Really?
For sure, bro.
Okay. All right. So that's the end of this podcast. Thank you for listening.
And one more thing,
One more thing. Go.
the byproduct of rocket fuel is water vapor.
Of what rocket fuel?
Of the traditional space shuttles and stuff they
Oh,
use.
yeah?
So hydrogen and oxygen create water. So those things are actually just throwing out water vapor at the back of their
So
exhaust.
people are just crying about it for no reason.
Yeah.
So
Well, not the new ones. Not the new ones. The methane and stuff is actually bad, but like those ones.
Really? So
Wow.
I remember like I would see like every time like we watch like a space like a thing launch and they'd see all the smoke and everyone would be like, that's so much smoke. What the fuck? Like so much pollution.
Yeah, there's definitely pollution in there, but the
Yeah.
majority of it is a lot of water.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode of the not Off the Top podcast. Sorry, this is the podcast that's not named.
It's
Off the Top Studios.
yeah.
So yeah, if you have enjoyed this podcast, if you've learned something, Comment, like, subscribe, do your thing. We're also on other platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, all these other platforms where you can listen to without seeing our faces if you're on the go, like in your car and traffic for 2 hours because they're closing the gardener, stuff like that. You can still listen to us. So make sure you guys are liking, commenting, subscribing, and following us on other stuff as well. We have all the links in the bio. Have a great day.
Yeah.